Namaste and welcome to another episode of Viewpoint. Australia, Canada, the United States, these have been quite the destination for a lot of graduate students in India. But however, recently, especially in Canada and the United States, we are seeing there's a growing voice which is saying that, perhaps Indian students should not be allowed to work over here, they're taking our jobs. What started off as a Twitter rant against Indians eventually is metamorphosizing into something about targeting H-1B visas in the US, targeting the OPT visas in the US. So what exactly is happening? Why were students preferring to go there? And is the United States and the Canada and Australia, are they still destinations that Indians will look forward to after all these kinds of rants happening? So to discuss, as usual, we have with us Mr. Suresh Kochatil, a research analyst. Namaste ji.
Namaskar.
So you've been seeing on Twitter, it earlier started, we've first seen traces where, when Trump came to power, we saw that most likely Kash Patel will become the CBI chief. We saw the Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk get together for a departmental of government efficiency. What initially seemed like something which was pro-Indian suddenly started taking a change, a kind of a U-turn. And people are saying that the MAGA activists themselves are now attacking the Indians. So starting with some racist things as well, and some at an economic level, at a policy level. So there's a lot of things going on. So what exactly do you think is happening and why is this happening?
I think the pushback against Indians is almost universal. Okay, I saw a recent interview with Dr. Jaishankar in an Austrian TV channel, because not many people watch Austrian TV channels, but there again we're told that there are more than a lakh of Indians who applied for political asylum. Now, I dispute that number. I'm not sure. Even Dr. Jaishankar disputed that number. But the anchor was insisting that the number was correct. Okay, we accept that number with a pinch of salt. But what is political asylum? We all know that certain people from certain part of this country go to Canada, go to US, go to Austria, go to other countries and claim political asylum based on the fact that they claim to be victimized after two subsequent major operations against terrorists in that state. We know we are talking about Punjab here. Punjabis have been traveling abroad quite a lot. In fact, they're very industrious. They're very hardworking. And if you look at the early entries into Canada, which is basically in Canada, the most of the population live only in certain parts of the country. But the Punjabis are such that they will go anywhere and convert that fallow land into a very productive one. Almost reminded of the Israelis, the way Israelis do it. But they use technology. Here it is sheer hard work. Later, we saw students moving in. So first was the employment potential people who were moving in. Second was the student. And the third was the political asylum. Now, what happened with students typically is that Indian students, why do they go abroad? We're seeing students go to Ukraine to study medicine. We saw during the crisis that happened, the war between Russia and Ukraine. That's when you first realize, oh my God, so many students are studying there. And then China, of course, when we saw the COVID impact happened, we saw a lot of Indian students coming back from China. Then again, we asked the same question. What are these people doing there? Why don't they study in India? Then we know that in India, to crack a NEET, it's extremely tough. And the seats were limited, but now the number of seats have gone up substantially, even at a PG level. But we'll keep those things aside because Canada is the ultimate destination for students because getting in there is more easy. Okay, you see in Hyderabad, go to many major roads, you will see the boards, emigrate to Canada. They openly do it. They have no qualms about it. They are not even being diplomatic. Many of these agents. Now, we saw as of a couple of weeks ago, there have been raids against these agents in India for pushing Indians into Canada. And from there, many of them making a desperate push into the United States to live illegally there. Two things are happening now. One, Trump is coming in. 20th of January, he will take oath. The second thing, Justin Trudeau is in trouble. He is not sure whether he is coming or going. And so that is another problem.
In a way, Trump is also he's actually making statements against Trudeau as well.
Yeah. He's saying he should be the governor for the next
state of the
US. But anyway, jokes apart, that is not a serious thing which Trump also takes it that way. The major fact is that even in Canada, the cost of living has gone up so much, the housing crisis that has come in. Even the Canadian government is thinking of cutting down on the number of immigrants coming into Canada. Okay, so that would actually kill the Canadian education system, especially for the Canadians, not for Indians. They can go to any other country tomorrow and study. As you mentioned, Australia was one such option, but the degrees there are not as good as compared to the United States. The United States is the best the employment opportunity post if you do it in a good college in the US. But there again, there are many shady colleges. I think one of the major blame that we need to put is on the agents in India. And I think the government of India has to take a very serious call on this. Who are these agents who are pushing the students with fake bank documents, fake financial statements, and once they'll fake educational statement, fake experience certificates for some cases. And these are all, we saw it in the early days of the dot-com boom, the same thing happening then also. But then a lot of things got pushed under the carpet because the US needed a huge amount of entry-level computer programmers. But that has kind of plateaued off now. Now the latest problem that is coming up after the mega hardliners went after President Trump and Elon Musk was the fact that what we call the optional practical training, or OPT as we call it. You mentioned at the start about the particular one about H-1B visa. And as we know, this rule basically dates back to 1947. It's not a recent phenomenon, but it has picked up steam over subsequent governments ranging from George Bush to Barack Obama, who have increased the periodicity of the OPTs. OPTs are basically taken by students to gain work experience because one, the college insists that they get it, and second, they also feel that they need to get that practical exposure after college. In India, it's not like that. In India, you do engineering and then you look for a job. That is, you on the job itself, after the first year, you try and gain some experience by either working or by teaching or whatever professions that you're getting in. Now, the problem is the numbers that are there is huge. And many US companies are also equally guilty. I would say US employers are equally guilty of employing these students at a pittance of a kind of official legal pay that they need to pay. Because one, for these students also to get in, it's not easy. One, the college has to recommend them. Second, they have to apply to the US government, the Nationalization Service, to kind of get them into the OPT factor. That's a big debate. If you get into that, there is a lot of things that are there. In fact, if you look at the numbers, that's huge. I mean, we're talking of lakhs of students who are there, who are still there. And according to congressional, I have a statement in front of you, research report, in calendar year 23, there were 1.5 million F1, and of course, there is another category called M1 vocational training students. And the recent graduates in the US, recent graduates, okay. About 23% of them, approximately 3,44,000, were authorized to work under OPT. So basically, what the American citizens claim, or rather American graduates who graduate out of college claim, is that they are not getting jobs because these people work at a lesser cost. Okay, we've seen these allegations before also against companies like TCS and Infosys in the US, saying that they're not taking US employees, US students rather, and they're looking for Indians to come in. Remember, one time we used to have offshore and onshore and all the kind of work culture that was there. People going on visas, even the visa was supposed to be rigged, and all the kind of allegations. But what does it do to students and what does it do to US companies is basically two things. One, if this OPT is removed, if the OPT is diluted, then the students will have to exit US as soon as they complete their course. Okay, now the logic is that they go there because they want to get a visa, they want to settle down there. But the long story short, basically that option gets thrown out of the window. Now, what happens to the employers also? The employers also looking for low wages today. And I keep repeating in every lecture of mine, wherever they talk about efficiencies of scale, that if the plumber costs more than the cost of the tap that he's come to fix, that economy is going down the drain. So if you get a tap, for example, if you take an Indian context, I'm just saying, the tap costs say 350 rupees and the guy who's coming to fix it costs 500 rupees. Then you are uncompetitive. The country is uncompetitive. Okay, but in India, we get a lot of other things done with the same plumber when he comes home. Okay, you will fix this, you will fix that, so that your overall cost remains the same. But US, it's not possible. It's a very straight deal that they have there. Now, as I said, the students need to apply. There is a format to apply. They need to first go get a letter from the college or the university or wherever they're working from. And then the US Citizenship and Immigration Services takes over from there. They apply to them. But there's no limit on the number of F1 or M1 non-essential immigrants who may participate in the OPT. So that's the biggest issue again. And majority of the 98 to 99% opt for the F1 status. The thing is that after some time, they want to get into the H-1Bs, which is the ultimate thing because they can then stay for 9 years and then hopefully get a green card. That's what the final thing is. But the entire thing is like an American dream.
But why is it being attacked all of a sudden now? I mean, wasn't it, till last year, you see that a lot of people were saying that Indians are at the epitome of many companies founded in the United States, be it Google or be it Microsoft. All of these were headed by Indian executives. So what happened now that there's a spin? Is it like, is there some kind of an anger that there's an Indian lobby now potentially influencing Donald Trump? Is that what's happening?
That definitely, because that we saw with Vivek Ramaswamy's appointment, Tulsi Gabbard's appointment, and a lot of Kash Patel's appointment, that look, the Indians are taking over our government. even though many of them were born
In the United States.
in the United States, but that doesn't really work that way because they're seen as Indians.
Right.
Okay, no matter if they have that American accent, because we know that even an Indian who passes through an American airport in transit also gets an accent, as the joke goes, you know. So the accent is not the question there. The question is also that, you know, Indians are successful, and we see that in different forums, not just the tech companies. I'll take a very, very bottom line example is your Spell Bee contest. Spelling bee. Now, there again, you see Indians cracking it. You see Chinese students, Indian students doing very well in their education. Not that the US students are not good, but we are hardwired that way. From a young age, from class 3 onwards, even class 1 onwards, your competition is the essence for Indian students.
And same thing with chess.
Yeah, and you talk of getting into a JEE or NEET or other exams that you want to crack, you have to prepare for years together. Some as early as years 7th or 8th class onwards in India. So we are hardwired like that. For us, competition, I think the Japanese can come very close to Indians when it comes to competitive exams. The parents spend a lot of time, effort, money into that. The advantage with OPT is one, it gives you that opportunity to acquire that skill that is needed for the course that you have done. But then some of the students don't do that and they do something else apart from what they're supposed to do. And I don't blame them for it because the market has become very tight there. We are seeing recent cases where some working as cashiers have got shot. Now you will ask, what is an engineering graduate doing as a cashier in a shop, or what is he doing in a fuel station? The problem is employment is very tough. The scenario is extremely tough. That's what Trump had promised. Now you ask me that question, why is the pushback coming now? Because the basic thing was that Americans make America great again. The slogan by Trump was to bring back manufacturing to the US, which lost it out in steel, car and other sectors. Now Trump is saying, I'll bring back the jobs from Mexico and Canada and China and other places. It's not easy to do it because the cost is a major factor. If you're going to make something in the US at the US cost, your customer will have to pay more at the end of it. Same thing is happening in Europe. Why are Chinese EVs being dumped in Europe is because if the Europeans start making it, then they have to pay, you know, more to buy the same car, which otherwise, even after the duties, still it becomes cheaper to import from China.
So in fact, the inflation will force you that, you know, the minimum wage should also be increased.
Yeah.
In essence, yeah. It's a loop.
In a sense, yeah, it should be. See, I'm not for saying that you should need to work at a pittance of what the Americans are legally paid per hour in the US. They need to. I mean, everybody needs to be paid the same amount of money for the same work they do. And it's even for men and women for that matter. There is a lot of gap. Yes, in terms of purchasing parity, US is different, India is different. You know? The minimum wage in the US is astronomically high when you look at it, but when you look at it from their cost of living purpose, that is okay kind of thing. Same thing goes for India. So the question is, what about this? Why is this pushback happening? And we all talk about OPTs. I think many students whom I know personally who have come for vacations this Christmas, who have booked the tickets for February, are being asked by the colleges to reach in January before 17th or 18th. They're scared that once Trump comes in, he'll sign in a law and which will kind of make it extremely tough for the students to return, even those who are still pursuing their courses there. Now, it's very scary. Imagine the parents have spent a huge amount of money taking loans or using their own reserves to kind of send these children abroad with the dream that, because we know in Kerala, for example, where I come from, nursing is a big draw. People go for nursing courses, go abroad. They work in India for 3-4 years, get the experience and go abroad. Both female and male nurses. Their engineering is not a big draw. Whereas in Telangana or Andhra speaking, or say Telugu speaking states, it is more of a draw that if you don't go to US, you're a good for nothing guy or a girl. So you have to go to US. If your parents are asked in a wedding or somewhere, where is your kid? If you say he's working in Bangalore or he's working in Chennai, working in the US, yes.
It's a reputation. Yeah.
The thing goes up and we don't need to say what all comes along with that. But the point is it worth doing all that now? And the pushback from Americans that is happening, the original Americans in quotes, is the pushback against what we are seeing in Germany, what we are seeing in UK, and what you're seeing in others. So you see the recent attacks in Germany and all have pushed the people to it. They're saying we need jobs, we need local jobs. And these are going to be very, very tough situations for the US government because Trump, even though he has kind of doubled down on that, Elon Musk is also kind of supporting him there. Vivek Ramaswamy is saying the right things, but it is not going to be easy for Trump because his own party people are now pushing back against. Not Democrats who are pushing back. They must be enjoying this in the sidelines, okay, and having a good laugh at Trump. But I think that there will come a time when Trump has to take a call, either on cutting down on H-1B or the IP program, whichever way he has to do it. And if that happens, when the OPT program really gets cut, the number of years are reduced. The student has to leave within 1 year of finishing the course. then where does the student go? What happens effectively is that then the American education system collapses. I gave an example of Canada. For Canada, every Indian student who goes there pays double or triple the fee what a Canadian student would pay. So effectively, they are subsidizing the Canadian student. The Canadian student almost gets the course free. Almost. I mean, they're paying, but they're paying so less because the Indian student is paying for it. That is why the Canadian government thought Indian students are a milk cow. You can do whatever you want with it. You can milk them dry. Now, the same thing would happen in the US also. And it is not that, as you mentioned, for every Satya Nadella, there are hundreds of unknown Satya Nadellas there who haven't made it in life, whose only hope was to get a green card and settle down. What happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and 2000 till the dot-com boom burst after the Y2K, it was a big thing going to the US. The Indian economy was not doing great. But now the question will come is, do we come back home?
Great. So I think on that note, we could end today's episodes. Thank you so much. So you heard what he had to say about the entire visas issue. And then, of course, it does bring in to another significant point that there's a spate of attacks by immigrants across Europe, in the United States. Is that in some way connected to this kind of a pushback against immigrants? So what's going on? Let's discuss on that in the next episode. Namaste and Jai Hind.